Greetings, greetings, greetings. God bless the chat. God bless all my brothers, my sisters. A shout out to my friends, my foes. Shout out to the lovers and the haters. As we are back here once again in the after hours for another update. Some more breaking news here. Some more current events going down. I'd like to greet each and every one of you in the wonderful name of the Lord Jesus. I am your host, TNT News. We are back yet again for another episode the TNT News Network, asking some tough questions. Tonight, we're right back with the one that's on everyone's mind, most certainly. Is President Trump getting desperate for the Strait of Hormuz to open? We appreciate you all for joining us. We ask you to smash the like button for sure. Make sure you let us know in the chat. Make sure you vote in the poll and let it be known, because we got a lot going on and a lot that is going on. We got to cover it all here in the after hours for sure. For sure. So let's get some shout outs real quick. I want to give a shout out to our beautiful and beloved sister, Mrs. TNT. We thank the Lord for her, most definitely. And give a shout out to my brother Christopher Spain. Greetings and God bless him. Thank the Lord for him. Shout out to my brother Leo Fernandez. God bless the Fernandez family for sure. Shout out to you, my brother. Shout out to our sister, Blessed. We thank the Lord for you, sister, joining us once again. Thank the Lord for you. Shout out to Mother Mercy Carr. Thank the Lord for her as well. Joining us once again in the after hours. Let me see who else we got in the chat. Shout out to Rackster10. Said it's a holiday. Well, shout out to you. Hopefully you enjoyed your time. You have an unfiltered front row to the U.S.-Iran war. We've been covering Operation Epic Fury since before it began. And tonight we're going to do a deep dive into some of these questions after the last, most recent developments for sure. So, where do we start? Well, let's start at the beginning. Let's walk through everything that has happened, right? So we know that over the last week or so, we've seen more targets get hit despite the talks of ceasefire and negotiations, things of that nature. Recent strikes hitting the defense industry sites, missile bases, pharmaceutical plants, and bridges. So what is all that leading to? Well, as you can see here in this headline we've got, it says Trump issues all hell warning. Iran says how many more 48 hours, right? So we've heard this before from President Trump. I'm trying to understand exactly what is going on. If there's some kind of negotiation, is there a ceasefire? Because President Trump, as you can see in the poll, he has threatened Iran with living in hell if they don't cooperate. That was his most recent threat to Iran, that they're going to live in hell if they don't cooperate. So this timeline that we keep hearing from President Trump saying that the war is wrapping up and the objectives are nearing completion and it's only another 2 or 3 weeks and Iran is no longer a threat, they don't really add up to some of the language that we're hearing from him. They don't add up. So President Trump's timeline is optimistic, but it's inconsistent with the facts. The 2 to 3 week window of nearing completion of the war, it keeps on shifting. It keeps on moving. And now, of course, Iran's making fun of the president, saying, how many more times, how many more 48 hours do we have? So it's a credibility gap. If the objectives were truly near to being finished, why the new threats from President Trump? Why the desperate language being used from President Trump? So, I think honestly, President Trump is betting that Iran is going to fold. And Iran is, unfortunately for President Trump, waiting us out. They're waiting it out. So let's just take a look here at some of the most recent things that we've heard from President Trump. I mean, the contradictions, they keep piling up. Just recently, U.S. F-15 Strike Eagle, right, military war aircraft, was shot down over Iran. That was on April 3rd. One pilot got rescued quickly. The second one was rescued during an operation just happened today. Now, the incident obviously reveals that Iran still has functional air defenses and that there's still firing going on despite these talks of a ceasefire. So something's not adding up there. Tactically, it shows, of course, the U.S. has air superiority, but that it's not absolutely untouchable. If Iran is downing planes, and if this drags on, obviously it's going to force what we've been talking about for a minute now, boots on the ground. We've been hearing about troops coming into the area, been hearing about Iran getting ready to retaliate with 1 million of their troops. So again, when we look to what President Trump is saying, the war is almost over, everything's all good. And then we have this clip here. We have this clip here that came out about 48 hours ago or less. And it has President Trump's words to Iran with another timeline. And this is why it's become a running joke in Iran. A lot of people say, you know, America can crush them. They are crushing them. But when President Trump keeps on saying, hey, 48 hours or else, hey, this deadline or else, they're not going to be taking him very seriously. So let's listen, let's watch along here to see exactly what's been unfolding from the president's own mouth.
By getting to the latest coming in here from Operation Epic Fury. President Trump just issuing a final warning to Iran, saying that the Iranian regime has 2 days left to make a deal or, quote, all hell will rain down. The president posting on Truth Social within the last hour, saying this right there on your screen. Again, remember when I gave Iran 10 days to make a deal or open up the Hormuz Strait. Time is running out. 48 hours before all hell will rain down on them. Glory be to God. President Donald J. Trump.
Okay, so I mean, there it is, right? Trump is saying make a deal or open up the strait or all hell will rain down on them. So he said this a couple days ago. And again, we see Iran's response, because this has been the running dialogue in response to President Trump saying and threatening all hell unleashing upon them. They say, how many more 48 hours are you going to threaten us with? Shout out to Bo Nowhere. He said, why is he threatening countries over Twitter? That is a good question. But honestly, this post is classic Donald Trump maximum pressure diplomacy. It's raw, it's personal, and designed to force compliance. Geopolitically, of course, he's trying to put pressure on other countries and daring his allies to act. But of course, it's not being taken seriously because he hasn't backed it up. Now, other people are saying, of course, President Trump is playing 4D chess. Let us know in the poll if you agree President Trump threatening Iran is the way to make a deal. As he said, I gave them 10 days to make a deal. So do it, or all hell will rain down on you. It's not exactly diplomacy. more so a threat. Basically saying, look, you either do it or else. Telling them that they don't have an option. On the ground side, of course, Pentagon has been weighing up to 10,000 additional U.S. combat troops. We already know the 82nd Airborne Division, on top of the 50,000, are already in the region, and more are heading to the area. So there's been a lot of talks of securing Karg Island. Also, again, Iran is making a massive defense mobilization. So it's not as though they're not aware, right, of what's happening, of the plans that are unfolding regarding ground invasion. A lot of people saying that that is a very horrible idea, because we know in Iran they already have 1 million fighters from the IRGC, from their militia, from the regular army, and more people are flooding the recruitment center, especially with the bombing of bridges and other public infrastructure. It's just unifying them more and more against America. I mean, that's really what's happening. So if you look at the U.S. troop surge, it's a escalate to de-escalate type of leverage, where urban fighting in Iran's mountain is going to favor those who are defending, in other words, Iran. If they flood the zone with motivated locals, the million-man mobilization that they have on the ground, they could turn every village into potentially a hot spot where U.S. forces are being targeted from. They have a 90 million population in Iran. They're unified against invasion. So that's not a winning battle. And I think President Trump knows that, which is why it's led to some of the more desperate language that we're seeing from him. We're seeing that are very telling, to the point of him saying, okay, I've issued threats, I've talked about ceasefire, but this isn't working. People have talked about the social media posts. Let's take a closer look at that here.
The president visited his Virginia golf club today, shortly after lobbing that profanity-laced threat at Tehran that he's going to start bombing bridges and power plants on Tuesday. Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf responded on X, calling Trump's threats reckless and telling the president, quote, "You won't gain anything through war crimes." In Washington, the president's post drawing condemnation.
This is outrageous behavior from this president.
And there's no amount of cursing or boasting or tough talk that will cover up for the fact that this president didn't have a rationale and he doesn't really have a plan.
So obviously not everyone is agreeing with what President Trump is saying and the way that he's going about saying it, right? Let's take a closer look at exactly what he said. So President Donald Trump today, right, 5th of April, at 8 a.m., he said, and I quote, "Tuesday will be power plant day and bridge day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the expletive straight, you crazy expletive, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah." President Donald J. Trump. So when I read this, it's saying to me, okay, something's happening here. Either this man is getting desperate or he's feeling the pressure and it's causing him to respond in this way. Let me know in the chat, is this a sign that the president is desperate for the Strait of Hormuz to be open? Knowing that, of course, he's been saying we're going to be leaving very soon. The war is almost over. But the reality is that this could easily shift from an air campaign to a prolonged ground campaign, or a mixture of both. And I think that's what President Trump knows as well, which is why he's going off in this way. But hey, maybe this is the key. Maybe this is the road to diplomacy. Let me know in the chat. Is this the right way that it should be going? I'm trying to figure out though, right? We know Allah means God, but normally President Trump would say, glory be to God or praise God. But this time he said, praise be to Allah. So like, is he trying to mock them in some fashion? I'm trying to figure this out because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me why he would say that after calling them names, after cursing at them, after threatening them again for the second, third, fourth, fifth time, saying you'll be living in hell. Just watch. I mean, I'm trying to figure out what is happening here, because if he's starting to panic, and obviously this was his idea, then now should we be even more worried, right? The person who's leading, commander-in-chief, if he's starting to panic, what does that mean for us? Let me know in the chat. Am I off on this, or is he sounding calm, collected, and on point? A lot of people have been circulating rumors about President Trump saying that his health is failing, right? They've noted his ankles swelling to 3 times the size. They had rumors of him being at Walter Reed Hospital, military hospital, and stuff like that. So is this a part of the pressure that President Trump is feeling, where maybe his health is failing? They're talking about how he's been babbling and having trouble speaking, having trouble opening pens and stuff like that. So they're saying they're showing cognitive decline. I don't know. I don't watch him really like that. So I'm going to be honest. I'm not really with the rumors. I'm just asking the question for those of you who do watch President Trump every day. Is the pressure getting to him in his old age? Is it causing him to lash out, to curse, to call names because the threats aren't working? The 15-point negotiation plan, it's not working. Let me know in the chat. Share your thoughts for sure. One thing that's concerning, whether you agree with President Trump's diplomacy tactics or not, is the fact that this is unlike any war that we have gone into before. A lot of people compare it to what took place in Vietnam, took place in Afghanistan, took place in Iraq, in regards to the U.S. having to withdraw and not having a clear-cut win on those particular fronts where they were the invading force, they were the aggressor. Is this a repeat? Or is something else unfolding? Let me know. I did see some alarming news that I'd like to share with all of you here. This is from a channel called True Line Studio, right? And they're reporting, as many others, that Iran, yes, they're taking heavy losses. Yes, they're getting hit more than they are returning fire. But the reason why they are taking a defiant stance is because something has taken place that a lot of people don't know about. That's what we want to do here, is bring this to your attention. So listen closely to the information that's about to be shared in this specific video.
Welcome back to U.S. Command Instant. What you are about to hear represents the single most consequential weapons transfer in the history of the modern Middle East. And the Western intelligence community missed it until it was already done. 500 Hwasong-18 intercontinental ballistic missiles the most advanced solid fuel ICBM that North Korea has ever produced. A weapon system that during its test launches in 2023 demonstrated a range capability exceeding 15,000 kilometers, sufficient to reach not just Israel, not just American bases across the Middle East, but the continental United States itself. 500 of them transferred in a covert logistics operation of breathtaking scale and audacity. Now sitting in hardened underground facilities across Iranian territory, fueled, targeted, and ready. Let that number settle for a moment. 500. The United States currently deploys approximately 400 Minuteman III ICBMs in its entire land-based nuclear deterrence force. The number that Iran has just received from Pyongyang exceeds America's entire ground-based strategic nuclear delivery inventory. And unlike the Minuteman III, a system whose fixed silo locations have been known, mapped, and targeted by Russian and Chinese war planners for decades, these Hwasong 18 platforms are road mobile. They move, they hide, they can be positioned and repositioned across Iran's vast national territory in ways that make preemptive targeting effectively impossible without real-time intelligence of a quality that no satellite constellation currently provides. Israel woke up this morning in a fundamentally different strategic reality than the one it went to sleep in. The qualitative military edge that Washington has guaranteed and underwritten for half a century, the assurance that Israel will always possess weapon systems and delivery capabilities superior to any combination of regional adversaries, has just been obliterated by a single transfer agreement between two sanctioned, isolated nations that the Western world spent decades trying to keep apart. The question that every defense ministry from Tel Aviv to Washington to Riyadh is now asking in emergency sessions is not whether this transfer happened. Satellite imagery, signals intelligence intercepts, and human intelligence reporting from multiple independent sources have now confirmed the transfer beyond reasonable analytical doubt.
Okay, so this is news to a lot of people, maybe not so many. Let me know in the chat if you're aware of this. Shout out to Brother Michael. Appreciate you joining the panel. And everybody hit the like button real quick. Hit the like button while you're here having this conversation. Michael, were you aware that North Korea had transferred, I think it said 500 of their intercontinental ballistic missile systems to Iran? And does that change anything in this war? Let me know your thoughts, Michael.
Let me start off by saying hello to you, brother TNT, and everyone in the chat. And I love you all, and I wish you well in Christ.
Love you too, brother. Good to see you back.
Yes, sir. No, I was not aware of that, actually. I don't know how it would change the war efforts, but a little fun fact about North Korea, allegedly, is that they have the biggest arsenal of biological chemical weapons. So, you know, that's always been my main concern. Not so much nuclear weapons, not so much ICBMs or anything like that. But my main concern, like I've said every time we spoke about this, it is biological chemical weapons, because I believe that they might be utilized at some point.
Yeah, that's true. So you not knowing this, does it change anything, Michael, in regards to Iran's capability?
I'm not sure, because it's not like North Korea, China, Iran, and Russia haven't been buddies for, you know, at least 2 decades now, further along than that for some of them. But I'm not sure, because they could be saying that they sent them 500 intercontinental ballistic missiles, but realistically, they could all be swapping tech and gear this whole time. So it's hard telling what they really have acquired, not only from North Korea, but from China and Russia.
Fair enough. You know, did you happen to see what President Trump had? I mean, there's been a lot of threats, right, going back and forth. But did you happen to see, I guess, the most recent one that was issued this morning?
Yes, I believe so. Where he said his bridge and power plant day on Tuesday. Yeah.
It seems. I mean, sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
Go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
Well, no, it seems like the language he's using is a shift from earlier where there was kind of a more confidence in the words that he was saying as far as, hey, talks are undergoing, there's a ceasefire, this is going great. A lot of positive and encouraging language, whereas now it's kind of like, as we know, when people get frustrated, they get angry when things are not going their way. So then they'll resort to using ad hominems, using expletives because they're upset.
Yeah, absolutely. I was listening to you while I was folding clothes and cleaning, and him saying praise be to Allah, it's definitely him kind of landing, I guess, insults on him, provoking him. Yeah, no, it's definitely, you got to think that man has posted memes of fighter jets dumping poop on protesters, and so there's no reason that anybody should believe that he wouldn't be
kind of mocking the way that they praise. Yeah. That's
which
sorry, go ahead.
I believe that's a grave mistake to a degree, because the Iranian regime, the leadership, wouldn't take too kindly to their faith being mocked. They'll handle a lot of things, but when it comes to their faith, it's all or nothing. So,
definitely not something to play with, for sure.
Right, because in a lot of Muslim culture, if you draw a picture of Muhammad or you talk ill against Muhammad or anything like that, then that's fighting words. So,
when I saw that and I said, okay, wow, what's happening here? Like, is he's trying to get a response from them? Maybe he's trying to get them to be as frustrated as he is, because we've been hearing for some time now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that there's been talks, there's been ceasefire, there's been negotiations, and things are moving right towards some kind of a deal being made. But now with this last 48 hours, right, he's saying, hey, Tuesday is about to go down. Obviously, all that stuff was just, I'm not going to say gaslighting, but it obviously wasn't true.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of untrue statements from every side, and it's not even just with this conflict. It's with any topic that you could possibly want to learn more information about. You can go and try to find data and all these things about any topic, and you'll always find 100 different sets of numbers and figures. So it's hard to tell, who exactly is telling the truth, what is the truth. But, allegedly, they didn't just shoot down a F-15 Eagle, Strike Eagle. Apparently, allegedly, it was also a couple helicopters, an A-10 Warthog, and some other things, allegedly. So, we'll just have to see where it goes. But I know that for them to hit an F-15 Strike Eagle, a lot of people downplay it because they say, oh, that's not even a stealth plane, this and that. Well, it may not be a stealth plane, but it doesn't mean that it don't have advanced defense measures that are not very easy to get past. And so you think about the ones that were shot down before, and they said it was friendly fire and all these things. And you think about all the missiles that people see that do weird stuff, like make abrupt turns or just nosedive into the ground or whatever. And there's something more than meets the eye that's going on here.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect place for us to kind of shift into this video here, Michael. And those in the chat, let us know. I mean, obviously, again, like Michael said, it's hard to tell what's truth and what's not. We know that the fog of war is something that's very real, when obviously there's going to be propaganda and stuff that's put out. But Michael, I want to hear your thoughts after we're done watching this clip on Pax Americana seemingly coming to an end. We'll talk about what that means and if that's something that is true. But first, I want to take a look at this video touching on the U.S. military airplane that was shot down in the mission to rescue the second pilot.
Two American pilots shot down over Iran, deep in enemy mountains. What followed was either the boldest rescue mission in a generation or the most expensive photo op in military history. Today, it's both.
عملیات به اصطلاح نجات ارتش آمریکا که در قالب عملیات فریب و فرار فوری به بهانه نجات خلبان هواپیمای ساقط شده خود در یک فرودگاه متروکه در جنوب اصفهان تحریزی شده بود با حضور به
So this is an IRGC commander, obviously speaking in their foreign tongue, foreign language, or their native language, but he's saying that the pilot was left at an abandoned airport in southern Isfahan, ended in complete failure to rescue him with the timely presence of the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran. So again, conflicting information as people are saying, oh, this is great. We were able to rescue him. You know, we saw President Trump commending those, saying, wow, this was very brave. This was awesome. You guys were able to rescue him. And Michael said something that was really important, that we shouldn't downplay what took place here. And the main thing is, of course, all of this, we can't forget, all of this is happening during the course where Trump said there is a ceasefire. I mean, it's funny how quickly we forget, but he said there is a ceasefire until the 6th, right? Iran kept coming out and saying, no, there is no talks. There is no ceasefire. None of that is true. So, you know, I mean, we still see targets being hit in Iran. We obviously see targets being hit back in retaliation. Let me know what's going on in the chat. Now, I asked Michael real quick about Pax Americana, which refers to a period of international stability that's overseen by the United States, right? Basically after World War II till now, or seemingly until recently, because no longer can America guarantee the stability of the Middle East. As we can see, multiple countries are being struck. The ships are obviously not able to pass through the strait, and that's causing a huge issue. It's causing a huge issue for everybody, because regardless of whether or not some people say, oh, well, this is going to open up eventually, we have to remember President Trump ran on no endless wars. He ran on no new wars. Now we're over a month in what questions to be some kind of exit strategy, but his diplomacy tactics are, again, threatening and cussing and calling names. So I'm trying to figure this out. Is the war just ending, or is it ending soon? I should say, is it just getting started? You know, looking at the pushback from Iran and looking at the fact that it is affecting oil prices, and that the U.S. military view is underweighing the Iranian morale and the activation of proxies like the Houthis and Hezbollah, and the risk of a forever war, a forever air war that, of course, drains resources without regime change. We've seen that they took out, right, the leader early on in the conflict, yet there was no regime change. We see that they continue to take out leaders. We keep hearing everybody's gone, everyone's been taken out. but yet still we don't see any regime change. So when we keep hearing we'll be leaving very soon, and when we keep hearing, hey, this is going to be over in a couple of weeks, and then we move a couple of weeks down the line and we see that it's not there, or in fact, it seems to be ramping up on the ground. It seems to be ramping up with new reports of weapons being shared from allies, like Mike was saying, China, Russia, North Korea. Obviously, Iran called President Trump's bluff. They called the bluff, and now they're eroding Trump's credibility, not only internationally, but of course back at home with the no new wars, no forever wars, because there's no end in sight for this. Michael, what are your thoughts on the end of Pax Americana, or American peace and stability in the Middle East?
I'd say it's further along than that. It's probably on the edge of the end of American hegemony across the whole globe.
Definitely taking a shot to credibility internationally, right?
Yeah, well, you think about all the strife and all the things we've been having with our allies, so it's kind of like when somebody is jealous or controlling or whatever of their wife, and as the saying goes, they'll just push their wife into the arms of another person. I mean, it's just I don't really know where this is going, but as much as I personally would actually like to see a different regime in Iran that would give people a more free society, it's not going to happen, because when you read in Revelation, like I talked about before, about the Gog-Magog war and the end of it, how it's, the whole world is gathered together to fight against God, and that's the conclusion of Revelation. When you read other parts of the Bible that talk about that specific time, it says that Persia, Put, Gomer, all of them and their bands, they're all involved in that event. So if Persia is involved in an event at the end of Revelation, that means that mentality, I guess you would say, or belief isn't going to go anywhere. It's just not. I don't believe. Once. All right, so here's a hypothetical, and it could be wrong, but here's a hypothetical. Let's say that this keeps going on, and the midterms come around, and they lose the midterms. Okay, well, now all of a sudden, there's a talk of impeachment. Okay, well, if there is an impeachment, now all of a sudden that president that was impeached can be held against charges that were postponed because he was active president. Once he's no longer active president, there's still things that would be hanging over him, so to speak. Now, what happens if he's impeached and he's arrested during all of this? Where does that go? But also the pride, not just of America, but more specifically America, but the pride in all these countries is going to be their downfall. When you hear them talk about the efforts and what's going on, it is very arrogant and very prideful, to say the least. And so there's a larger group of people here in this country that would believe that, and there's a larger group in this country that are just as prideful, not only about our capabilities, but a lot of things. So it says in the Bible that God resists the proud. So in order for people that may be believers to have that delusion of pride to come down, it would take something that God was going to do to tear it down, to humble themselves, because you can't be seeking the Lord with all this pride in your heart, because you're supposed to humble yourself, so if we can't humble ourselves, God will humble us, for us.
I mean, that's definitely true in that regard. It's just when I see what's going on here, Michael, and those in the chat, there's a sense of confusion, of course, associated with war, but there's a real sense of confusion that's coming from the commander-in-chief, right? The one that initiated the strikes along with Israel, of course, but it's safe to say that the U.S. is the primary aggressor in this conflict with Iran. And the confusion that's coming from him and the lack of direction of saying, okay, we need to find an exit ramp from this conflict, versus he's like escalating. It's like an escalation on his part. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, those in the chat and Michael on the panel, but with Trump issuing more threats, threatening infrastructure, making it very plain that he is obviously upset, the talks have broken down, and that obviously the strait is still contested, and that he's not able to take it back by force. Right? He's saying he's almost, in a way, if you look at it, he's almost begging them to make a deal and open up the strait so that he doesn't have to escalate it. But of course, they're not blinking, they're not taking the bait. And for some, it's hard to blame them, because last time, quote unquote, negotiations were taking place, the supreme leader got bombed and killed, along with a lot of his family. So, I wouldn't blame somebody for saying, no, I don't want to talk to you about negotiations, when the last time we did this, there were bombs going off, missiles being dropped, etc. So, I mean, this is where we're at. Regardless of all the talk of the success in the conflict on the American side, they are still unable to open the strait by force, right? They have to ask. If you look at the post, Michael, what Trump is saying, he's asking them to make a deal or open the strait. But in asking, right, he's demanding it. But it's, I mean, what I'm saying is, I guess if you look behind the words, right, he's saying, hey, I need you to open this. And if you don't open this, then I have to do this because you won't open the strait. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's basically saying, I can't force you to open it, so I'm going to do something else with the hopes that it will force you to open it.
It's almost kind of like, I don't know if you remember or know any Taylor Swift songs, but there's this one song where she's like, ooh, look what you made me do. Yeah, so it's kind of like that.
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean, but no, I don't know any Taylor Swift for sure. But yeah, it's just, if you look behind the language he's using, he's continuing to demand something from them. They're not acknowledging or giving in to his demand. So then he's turning to threats. That shows desperation.
Well, technically, if you want to be technically speaking, from start to finish, it's been demands. It hasn't really, the whole time. So he's went in there with the list of demands, telling them to meet his demands and negotiate with him. So it's not like the whole entire time it hasn't been like this. It's just, I guess now more people are more privy to it.
Right. Well, that's the thing, right? It's now into the public. It's on the public platform, right? His Truth Social media, where he's saying these things versus, using whatever diplomatic channels he was trying to get the American public to believe they had established. Right? Even if the talks broke down, you would think behind the scenes you would show this frustration and say, you know, this, I need this, or else. But he's doing it on a public platform. And to me, it's very telling in regards to President Trump is getting desperate and he's running out of options. It's basically, if Iran doesn't blink and open the Strait of Hormuz, he has to keep escalating the war. What is Iran going to do in response? Of course, they're going to strike back as they have been. And there's no end in sight, right? It continues to snowball. And then they've already amassed ground forces on both sides. They've been talking about Karg Island. It's been said that it's a horrible idea. But I guess my point is, again, there's no exit ramp that's being shown that we're headed towards by President Trump.
Do you remember, it was some months ago now, I suppose, but I was telling you that there'd be a time when being a Christian or claiming that title would be very unpopular, and that there was a holy war that was going on and that would affect people and turn everybody against religion in general. Do you remember that?
Are you talking about recently, or just
no? It was some
general?
Months ago. Now,
Months
yeah,
ago?
it was some months ago. You might not remember, but that's the thing. That's where we're at, because you think about them saying stuff like, you know, Jesus put Donald Trump on in here to, you know, fulfill Armageddon, basically, and they're telling all their soldiers and stuff to prepare for Armageddon, all these things. Well, that's not just happening on our side. So, you know, the one surefire way to turn everyone against any kind of religion would be to have another big, I guess what you would call a war that was started over religious reasons, because as you can imagine, that's one of the biggest complaints that people have with Christianity and stuff in general now, is that people have been saying that religion is the, you know, the like main cause of war and division in society and all this stuff. But all of this would be perfect to set up a stable leader that didn't have the same beliefs, and inevitably that leader would have all the answers to everything, and he would spread forth his riches and stuff and subdue people with peace and flatteries. But you know, you think about some of the things that's been unveiled as of recent, like them allegedly, I think it might actually be confirmed by now, I'm not sure, but allegedly United States deployed a type of EMP device during this conflict that, you know, basically shut down electronics in the air and stuff. And laser weapons have been publicly deployed, although it's not really talked about. So we're on that precipice of something else. You know, you think about this whole disclosure stuff they've been pushing. Now, you know, to me, if they have to start unveiling secret arsenals, technology and stuff that would blow people's minds, they would have to come up with reasons why they had it. all this other stuff. So I think
Yeah.
disclosure of what they're calling aliens and all this stuff goes hand in hand. But also, I believe that this war, when it actually kicks off to be more evident, if it goes that way, will coincide with a big celestial event that not too many people would miss. You think about the stuff happening in space as well that nobody's talking about, because the war has took everybody's attention, because it's not one of those things that's going away. Like, for instance, in Turkey, a few years ago now, I believe, there was an earthquake that killed 50,000 people.
Wow.
In 2010, there was an earthquake in Haiti that killed 200 and some thousand people. But yet, nobody really talks about those things today. It's not really something on somebody's radar, because whenever things happen, it's like something will happen and then automatically people will forget and move on to the next thing. But with this war, it's not giving them a chance to move on.
Well, I mean, not to cut you off, Michael, but you said something that rings very true as far as forgetting and kind of moving on. Like, just 6 days ago, Trump was saying there's diplomatic progress, and the U.S. is working with a new and more reasonable regime in Iran, right? He was saying that they're making progress in negotiations with Iran, and that they were in deep negotiations, that a deal was possible, and all these different things. But now, again, just today, here we see that Trump is saying, look, make a deal, otherwise I'm blowing up everything. So, I mean, that's two very conflicting messages that we're getting from Commander-in-Chief. And I'm trying to figure out, let me know in the chat, if that signals that President Trump is confused, that he was lying, or that he didn't make any progress on these negotiations and he was hoping for something to give, and now he's kind of resorting to the only thing he has left, which is force. Now, the problem here, though, Michael, is even though Trump is threatening to unleash hell on Iran, blow up their bridges and stuff like that, Iran's cost tolerance is much higher in this conflict because it's existential. I think you mentioned that before. The U.S. costs, it mounts faster in our democracy. And so with the Strait staying contested, even partially, which it's heavily contested now, but even just partially, global inflation rises. It's hurting Trump's domestic agenda. It's hurting his ratings for sure, like you mentioned, midterms. And if you look at Trump's ratings now, they are way below what they were at this time in his first term, lower than it's ever been at any point in his second term. And for those of you in the chat that do support Trump, that's your prerogative, that's your opinion, I respect it. But only 28% of Americans support the war, 59% oppose it. So again, the cost, and it shows that Iran is willing to drag it out. The recruitment shows that. Their tactics and their continued stance, even after heavy losses, shows that they're willing to drag it out. The classic war of attrition we talked about a little while ago, Michael, is that obviously Iran is prepared for decades of battle if that's what it takes. Whereas we know, again, in the last few conflicts the U.S. has been in, a long drawn-out war for us means withdrawal. And there's not a clear-cut win. If you didn't win, then you lost. I mean, just to put it plainly. But let me get some of your comments in the chat real quick. We got another video I'm going to show you regarding this situation where President Trump has threatened Iran with hell on earth. Let me know if you think this is the path to diplomacy, if you agree with what President Trump is doing, or if you're just simply not sure. Let me know. So Michael Krampus, he says Trump is a moron. All right. Jojo says Kamala is coming back. Okay. Shout out to C. Franco, said, God bless our brilliant president. All right. Shout out to Leo Fernandez. He said Iran clearly wants to smoke regardless. I think that's a fact. That's a fact. Mrs. TNT said the Iranians have done nothing to us. Shaking my head. They don't deserve that. If you look at the losses, definitely it's uneven for sure. For sure. Let me look here. Shout out to Sister Renee. Appreciate you for sure joining us here in the after hours. My brother DJ Grant said, why is he doing this? Why is he doing this? Honestly, DJ, I'm gonna be honest. The language that Trump has used today and that he's used in the past, the flipping, the flopping, the back and the forth, it tells me that he doesn't know what he's doing. I'm gonna be honest. He doesn't know what he's doing now that this conflict is dragging on and it doesn't have any end in sight. Now that Iran is not backing down, they're saying, okay, you want a war, we'll go to war. And so he's trying to force them to come to an agreement so we can walk away and say, hey, see, we made a deal. See, I make deals. That's what I do. And they're saying, no, forget your deal. Let's go to war. So he's doing this, DJ Grant, long story short, is because he doesn't have any choice. His tactics aren't working. His classic tactics aren't working that he usually would use in regards of, pressuring, trying to escalate to de-escalate, and other things of that nature. It's just simply not working with them. And so I had said before that this is unlike any war that the U.S. had fought in the past. And somebody had said, let me see here. Shout out to Bo Nowhere. He said, I think he's scrambling. Threats have worked for him so far. I think he's freaking out. That's a great it's a great breakdown of what's, I believe, going on for sure. Somebody had said they disagreed that this was unlike any other war in the past. I'm looking for it. Dr. Phil in the house, shout out to you, said he is mocking them. Kono says he was mocking them. Again, we're going to pull up President Trump's post and comment. Definitely something that you wouldn't expect the president to say. But yeah, when I look at it, and of course, President Trump has said glory to God before and stuff like that. But for him to say praise be to Allah, that's like, whoa, wait a minute. Like now you're trying to mock the way that they praise. That's a little bit different. If the diplomatic solution is breaking down and you're cussing at them, you're calling them names, okay, if that's how you handle it, then hey, do you. But to mock like their religion, that's a whole nother level, in my opinion. That's a level
realistically, whatever, and a lot of people might not agree with this, but whatever happens to either government or either side, it's not like that. It's not something that either one wouldn't deserve to a degree. Because you look at all the bloodshed that's been across the world, that's had various different armies and stuff involved. The United States, Iran, funds proxy groups, and they export a lot of violence and stuff as well. Whether people would agree or not, it's just been proven time and time again, because since 1979, they've been saying death to America, death to Israel, the leadership.
Well, I mean, they're not the only one that said that, right? Like North Korea.
No. Yeah. Basically, the alliances you see, like the BRICS nations, not so much Russia, although Russia has been trying to contest our, they try to match what we do, China as well. But you don't really hear a lot about China, which is
kind of hanging in
to
the background.
Well, to me, that's one of my personal biggest concerns. Not saying, because I've warned about Iran and how dangerous that their regime actually is in terms of arsenal, weaponry, tactics. But China is a whole different story, because it kind of goes under the radar, untalked about, unnoticed. Although they are one of the world leading exporters of pretty much any product in the world. it's just nobody really pays attention to what they're doing, and they've had major things that they've done, like Operation Star City, I believe it is, where they tried to replicate. Yeah, where they tried to replicate a star, an artificial sun or a star. So you think about how advanced they are. You know, they've got fighter jets that are the same generation as our top tier fighter jets, if not one generation ahead.
Yeah.
So you think about all the things that they. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mike. I was just going to say they're definitely not just sitting on their hands and doing nothing. They're operating in the background for sure.
Yeah, definitely. They have for a while.
Right.
You know, they've amassed a tremendous amount of debt from multiple countries. So technically, multiple countries owe them money. So they actually have, you know, an economic upper hand to a degree, whether people would believe so or not.
Yeah.
But anyway,
the world's largest producer, that puts you in position.
Yeah. Like for almost every product, there's no product hardly that you can find that doesn't say made in China. I'm sure that you can find the occasional Thailand or Bangladesh or whatever. But anyway, the thing is that the things that could have been swapped, not only with Iran, but all these nations, you know, you think about like NATO and stuff. So NATO has a structure to it, and it's kind of got like a command handoff type thing where you work jointly with each other, and any country can kind of like take command of an operation at any moment, and it's really kind of hard to pinpoint, you know, where the operation came from if they do that. So it's the same way with the other countries. Iran could launch a missile, let's say, right? And Russia could be the one that actually makes sure it delivers to its target. So, you know, Russia could deliver that missile, but Iran would be the face of the launch. And so you really couldn't directly prove Russia had anything to do with it. But, you know, it's pretty crazy. The technology that we have and the way that people
what I was
are.
saying, Michael, this is unlike a war that the U.S. has engaged in prior to, just because the stakes are a lot higher. The capabilities are a lot higher, the payloads, right? The weapons systems, everything is heightened. So, and then of course the allies that are involved concerning Iran and stuff like that can happen by proxy, basically what you're saying. And I agree. We wouldn't know. Who would know? Because the fog of war is very real for sure. So, I mean, we're looking at this post from President Donald Trump, Commander-in-Chief, Make America Great Again. He posted that this morning at 8 a.m. Sister Bless says Trump is a man-child. Oh, man. Shout out to Bo Nowhere says, I don't even think he knows what's going on. He never knows till it's too late. His administration has gone rogue. I mean, I'm definitely getting a sense of like, hey, you're going back and forth so much. Again, less than a week ago, we were all being told we're making great progress on these negotiations. Hey, nothing to worry about. It's coming to an end soon. We're making a deal. Now it's do it or else. I mean, that's very different. Mrs. TNT says, I think he's mocking and disrespecting the God they serve. I'm sorry, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, he definitely was.
That part there is I mean, that's a little different, right? I mean, even for Donald
they take
Trump.
their faith seriously.
Well, I mean, even they haven't came out and said anything against, you know, the faith that those who believe in Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. Iran hasn't came out and said anything mockingly toward the way that most Americans praise God, if you will. So for
No,
him to
not.
say that is, he's taking a real shot, a low blow, with the Islamic world, honestly.
Well, not publicly. Iran hasn't said anything that would.
Yeah, no, not publicly. You're right.
Yeah, but doctrinally, that's that's part of the belief. When you if you actually read the Quran, that's totally part of the belief to kill
Right.
Jews and Christians. But the thing is that war itself is very deceptive, right?
True.
But the ideas and beliefs of men are very deceptive, let alone war. Because you think about a serial killer, okay? Most serial killers are outstanding citizens, prominent members in society, involved in fundraisers and charities, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's the nicest person you ever meet," or "That would be who I'd want to watch my kids." But really, John Wayne Gacy was not who he led on to be. So that's also an aspect, not just for Iran, but for a lot of countries, because it's kind of all a facade.
Yeah, no, I'm not denying their underground hate, right, towards the Western way of life or whatever that may be. I'm just
not
saying,
even just them, but the United States too. Because you hear things like, "Oh, we're peacekeepers," this and that, right? But then when you actually see military operations and you see the reactions of people in comments or whatever, it's always like, "Oh, you're stupid if you want to tangle with the Rangers," or, "We'll destroy you," and this and that. So a lot of times the United States claims to be a force of peace, but internally its people are not very peaceable. Quite the opposite to a degree, because you look at the supposed figures, we're one of the most mentally ill countries on the planet. So that should tell people something.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, right, throughout the world and even in America have said, look, stop policing the world, right? So I get what you're saying, Michael, for sure, in that regard. We're going to take a few more of these comments as we're looking at President Trump's words typed from his thumbs on his social media. Tuesday will be power plant day and bridge day. So going to strike their power plant and the bridge. Now, if we look at that in reverse, if someone were to hit a power plant or a bridge, a major bridge in America, we would be calling that like a crime against humanity, right? And stuff like that. President Trump is kind of glorifying this, saying there will be nothing like it. Then he goes on to cuss, saying open the strait, calls them names. It says you'll be living in hell. Just watch. So, I mean, this, when I saw this, I said, wow, he is under either a lot of pressure or he's starting to lose his cool, or both. Let me take a couple more comments, Michael, and get your thoughts on this next video as well. Woody says Trump is trash. All right. Charles Foster, shout out to you, says President Trump is the best. Okay. Leo Fernandez says evil versus evil is what I see. Let me see here. Woody says he wants to deport black people. You got to be the dumbest houseboy to support him. That's interesting. Charles Farger says President Trump is winning. All right. This is the comment I was looking for. Kono Tree, shout out to you, says, I respectfully disagree that this is unlike any war in the Middle East over the last 50 years. I think he maybe meant that the other way, because his following comments kind of support or go against what he was saying. Support my position, but goes against his position. He continues and says, Iran can retaliate, and they are striking hard. Iran has prepared for over 45 years. And though that's true, and that's why this is unlike any war in the Middle East beforehand. So I think maybe Kona was saying maybe they thought I had a different position or whatnot. What are your thoughts on that, Michael?
Well, realistically, their biggest strength is kind of exactly the same tactic that they use with proxies, but with undercover operatives. That's their biggest strength, because it's not like they need a missile to touch, the continental United States. They don't need a missile. So, you should always keep your friends close and your enemies closer. But also, you got to remember as well, Jesus told you to pray for your enemies. So I don't hear anybody saying pray for the Iranians, but you should.
Yeah. And definitely keeping them in prayer, all those who are affected for sure, as this conflict goes out. They've definitely taken a lot more losses, right? If you look at the civilian loss, yeah. I mean, they've taken a lot more loss of life and infrastructure and everything involved. So certainly prayers for all those involved, all those in Iran that are caught up in this conflict, for sure. Bo Nowhere, he says, sorry, go ahead, Michael.
Sorry, go ahead, brother.
I was just going to get a couple more comments real quick, but I didn't want you to lose your thought, though.
Okay. This war is different to a degree than any other war in the Middle East, because yes, Syria is friends with Russia. Yes, there's some alliances, but Iran specifically has all the powerhouses as its friends, and so close friends. So if one of their buddies is in serious trouble, them other countries are not going to just let its ally be destroyed or wiped out or whatever. But more specifically, Iran already said some time ago, because this isn't the first time Donald Trump was talking about hitting like power plants and infrastructure and all this stuff. He said it before, and the Iranians have already said that if he does that, it would be catastrophic for the whole world, which I would believe that, because they could hit power, infrastructure, or whatever globally without a trace, technically, if they have sleeper cells or whatever. So, it's definitely a situation to be wise in and seek the Lord with.
Amen. Bo says, the enemy of my enemy, Trump, has been making a lot of enemies and losing allies. Certainly when you look at the response of NATO and NATO countries to President Trump asking for help, asking for a coalition to help open up the Strait of Hormuz, you can see that that's manifesting for sure. Recliu, I think that's how you say their name. Shout out to you. Says, yes, Trump is drawing out their moves. He wants to expose every strike they make. I'm trying to understand. So you're saying that by President Trump saying these things, he's exposing their strike and their every move, but somehow they don't already know all the places that Iran is striking in every move?
Someone in the chat asked if you would drop the link so they could join.
Yeah, the link is actually pinned, but I will drop it again for sure. All are welcome up here on the panel. Share your thoughts in the chat. Let me know for sure what your thoughts are on President Trump's most recent statement as he threatens Iran with hell on earth. So I got a video to play real quick. I want to get your thoughts on it. Michael, those in the chat for sure. Despite these threats to Iran, let's see what their response is.
More breaking news coming in. In retaliation, Iran is threatening much more devastating retaliation if civilian targets are hit. as the US-Israel war on Iran continues to deepen. And do remember, a lot of further statements are expected in the next few hours from President Donald Trump. He also reiterated his claims on the deadline set for more strikes on Iran if the state of command is not reopened, and comes this warning from Iran. In the meantime, threatening much more devastating retaliation. To give you more context, let's quickly get into more details with Akash Sharma, who is joining us live this morning. Good morning, Akash. We have already seen, Kuwait power, water plants being struck by Iranian forces. Not just that, the devastation been seen in Burma, in UAE. So the Gulf continues to bear the brunt of the ongoing conflict. Now Iran is increasingly going for more and more energy infrastructure in these Gulf nations, and much more, Iran says, can be expected and should be expected if the United States continues to go after Iranian civilian targets.
Oh, yes, Iran has enough rejected the ultimatum to reopen the state of foremost Kuwait. You rightly pointed out. And this seems to be the strategy that you are going to target our energy infrastructure. We are going to retaliate and we are going to target the infrastructure in Gulf nations. And we have seen in past, you must be remembering the time when initially.
So to sum this up real quick, it's just a news report that came out about an hour ago or less. But Iran returns a threat from President Trump's final ultimatum to unleash hell upon them, basically saying, hey, if you are to strike any of these civilian sites, such as the power plant and the bridge, that they're going to strike back also on key infrastructure. So, and they're playing a video of some different locations that have been hit by missile strikes and things of that nature. Some in Israel here, and also some that are in Lebanon, and some that are in Iran. The point, though, that I wanted to make is essentially they're calling his bluff. They're saying, look, go ahead and do it if you want to. We're going to shoot back. So if we look and ask the question that's in the poll, do you agree with President Trump having threatened Iran with living in hell if they don't cooperate? Or do you feel like this is not the way to diplomacy? Interesting enough, the poll at almost 400 votes, it's almost split. 52% said it's not the way to diplomacy. 41% said they do agree with President Trump as far as threatening Iran with living in hell if they don't cooperate. I don't know if people are just unaware, but Iran has been receiving threats and demands, as Michael said, from the beginning of this conflict, and they haven't blinked yet. So if you agree that this is the way to diplomacy, maybe you're not keeping score, but they're not taking any of these threats. I'm not going to say not seriously, but it's not forcing them to stop what they're doing. TVOI, I'm going to drop the link again for you. I'm sorry it's not working, my good sir, but certainly the link is right there in the chat for you and anyone else that wants to come up. But yeah, that's a news report again from international news outlets, independent news medias. And as you can see, you make a threat to us, we threaten you back. So I don't think it's going to work. I'm going to just be honest. President Trump's last message here, it screams desperation. It screams, hey, this is my last resort. Do it or else. Just watch. And they're like, okay, so then do it. I don't think these are the right people to be. I don't think it's the right people to be threatening this way, Michael. I'm gonna be honest. It doesn't seem to be working, sir. Let me know if I'm wrong.
As we've seen before, though, it's not like he won't do something he says.
No, I mean, he's gonna strike them for sure. But it's escalation,
before Tuesday. It'll probably be before Tuesday, to be honest. I mean, it could be on Tuesday, but his whole track record is always kind of happens a little bit before he says or it's
Yeah.
delayed forever, and then it's when's it going to happen? Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
But even if you were to launch military campaigns in a war, the right way to go about it would be the exact opposite of what you're seeing here. Because if you're going into a war, there's no need for like public taunts or any of that sort of stuff. It should be done. Right. It should be done in meetings that, to be honest, don't really. A lot of times, the meetings that we've had in the past didn't really get a lot of coverage because, when it comes to the military or anything like that, like for instance, in the Gulf War, there was a general that like kicked out the media to a degree and kind of like, pushed back on the media presence a little bit because war is ugly, whether you like it or not, or think so or not. And there's always casualties to war that are unfair or whatever the case may be. The more people that see that, the more, they can't really exercise and the freedom that they would like to do. But the whole thing is that it's obviously going to lead somewhere probably very ugly. Yeah.
I guess my point is, Michael, what Trump wants is very clear, right? What's best for the world economy is very clear. For the Strait to no longer be contested. Iran made it very clear what their 3 demands are, right? They want repayment for the costs of the strikes. They want guarantees of no further aggression and things of that nature. I forgot the third one, but if the goal is open the Strait of Hormuz and you can't do it by force, despite all these talks of we're crushing them, their navy's gone, yada, yada, you still can't open this piece of water, despite your military superiority, which is not a question. U.S. is militarily superior, but they're unable to open the Strait of Hormuz. So if that's your goal,
should tell you. No, that should tell you. If they're unable to open the Strait of Hormuz, all of a sudden you gotta ask yourself, are we the cream of the crop like we think we are?
I mean, that's definitely a good question. That's a good question. I guess it's a complex answer, but I agree with you though in regards to like capabilities that we are boasting we have, but we're not showcasing them with the Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, still, I mean, it's no longer a question. We are unable to control the Strait of Hormuz. That's no longer a question.
Well, not even just technological. Let's say skill and training wise. I'm not saying the United States doesn't have excellent training for their troops and all these things, but you don't know how these other countries train their troops necessarily either.
Like someone said in the chat, they've been training for 50 years.
Well, now you've got a situation where majority of the people that are involved in a conflict, whether it be a rebel group or what have you, have had long periods of time with active, missions and whatever they've been doing, and actively, doing things, and that's training within itself. So now you've got people that have decades of training, using firearms, all these things, and American soldiers. I'm sure that yes, they do get their training, but it's not like we're involved in military conflicts at a rate which the IRGC is. The IRGC, not so much specifically, but the proxy groups, which there are IRGC members in proxy groups. But it's just crazy, the amount of arrogance and all these things. You can't just assume just because somewhere is America that it's completely like archaic and it has no capabilities or technology.
No, that's fair enough for sure. I want to be honest though, Michael. Like looking at this post from President Trump, it's very telling with regard to the fact that obviously we're unable to open the Strait of Hormuz. We're past a month into the conflict now, and it's still out of our control. So we're desperate for that to be open. That's what I'm getting from President Trump's language here. Let me know if I'm wrong in the chat, but that's what I'm getting is desperation. And if you read behind the words, if you look behind, like if you look at what is he trying to communicate here, despite being insulting and, those other things, what is he really saying? He's saying, look, I need the strait to be open. So please make a deal. Otherwise, if you don't, I'm going to do A, B, and C. So it's really it's a plea for them to open the Strait of Hormuz, but he is not wanting to be looked at in that position, obviously, whatever, humbling himself, whatever the case may be. But he doesn't want to go into the position of saying, hey, look, will you please do something? So what do you do instead? Hey, you better do it. So you play the position of power with the hope that it will work. But what if the person doesn't care that you're going to strike them? And that's what we're looking at here. Again, existential war for them. They can take heavy losses and continue to keep fighting. They're expecting it.
Absolutely. It actually encourages them.
Right. So this isn't going to work.
No, no.
I mean, that's
obviously, in most places, you can take out a high-ranking official, a leader, and it would definitely impact almost anywhere you did that, except for a few exceptions, and Iran being one of them. It didn't really have. It's not like Venezuela or wherever, Colombia, wherever that, the leader's gone now. They've got to, scramble to get some kind of leadership in order or whatever. Iran's very different. And that was one of the grave mistakes that has not been accounted for. Really, really, like I said, we need humbled anyway. You look at how the Western world has lived, and you look at how the whole world in the whole. If you take the Western countries out, and you look at how the other countries live, people impoverished. Sometimes there's no drinking water, no food, disease, what have you. Right? The Western world complains about what they don't have. They are like, if you're not from Western country, all of a sudden there's like maybe a sense of like, oh, you're not like I guess dehumanizing people to a degree. A lot like what people that really do not like Donald Trump does, and I've seen it in the chat where they dehumanize people and call them rats or whatever. But really also, I'm sorry I'm rambling, but this is the biggest takeaway for me from this. The war itself is one thing. The thing that I see as an issue is the kind of taste or appearance of Christianity after all of this, during all this, whatever, because a lot of people are going to associate Christianity with MAGA, which they already do. So, there'll be a time where it won't be so popular to call yourself a believer in Christ. And yes, there's a war going on, But we should all take this time of relative peace to get right with the Lord and enjoy our families, you know.
Amen. That's facts. I'm gonna try to get some of these comments out the way real quick, but I agree with Michael. I mean, if there's anything that we could do, prayer is the first thing that we should do, most definitely. Most definitely. Terry says if he doesn't, referring to President Trump, if he doesn't follow through this time, the world will mock Trump more than they are already. He's a joke. The way he talks is like a petulant child who's not getting his own way. Oh, man. I mean, that's what I'm kind of saying. And shout out to Sister Paulette. Sorry, I'm behind in the chat. But yeah, it does look, and what it says is that, hey, I'm not getting my way, so I'm going to threaten you, which is really a plea for you to give in. I mean, that's what I'm getting from it. It's a plea for them to give in. It's like, please do it so I don't have to do this.
Well, notice that that happened after this whole, you know, jet incident and the rescue operation and everything. It didn't happen before that. It happened after.
Well, he's been issuing threats, right? Like maybe the past 48 hours. I think because it became
this
evident.
language specifically. Like what
the
now,
language escalated for sure, yeah.
So that should tell you something. Maybe something happened while they were rescuing those pilots or whatever that spooked them.
Well, I mean, like you said, Iran is contesting their whole narrative about the rescue. They're saying that multiple aircraft were shot down during the rescue, and it was not this successful mission at all. Obviously, none of us here are going to know the truth. So we just have to go with both
sides lie.
Right. So we just have to go with, you know, whatever you're being told and try to sift through whatever's there. But that's why I said his words here are very telling, right? This is something you're getting an insight to Donald Trump's thinking now. And not to say I know what his mind is, how his mind operates or anything, but what I'm saying is through the language he's using, just like right now, if I were cussing and calling Michael names, you would be able to have some kind of insight to my mindset and say, wow, he's unhinged, something's upset him, whatever. So looking at Donald Trump's statements here, I'm not going to say he's unhinged, but obviously he's very upset. Obviously something's not working and going the way he expected it to concerning the Strait of Hormuz and these talks. And let's make a deal. Iran's made it clear, though, Michael. They're not going to make it.
Realistically, it's good for him to, because his whole life, he's always been surrounded by people that just enable him. So for him to lose control would be a good way for him to be humbled. And a lot of people I see, they don't pray for Trump, but really, I pray that Jesus Christ touched Trump like I've been touched by Jesus Christ, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely, you know, Trump needs Christ for sure. But as we all do, you know, don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is, I agree with you, Michael, in a personal sense, this may be humbling for Trump, but what is the cost to all of us, right? The gains are privatized. Well, in regards of, no, I'm saying in regards to this war in the economy, right? So the losses are publicized, but the gains are privatized. So whatever Trump tends to gain from this, that's on a personal sense. But in the meantime, what we stand to lose from this in regards to gas prices, oil, and a prolonged conflict, which may affect and put the U.S. obviously at a higher chance of danger at some point, that's not a gain for the rest of us. You see what I'm saying?
Oh no, it's not going to be a gain for the rest of us. Like I said, I strongly believe that at some point, Now, this is my belief. It's not actually like a guarantee or anything. So, you should take what anybody says with a grain of salt and try it by the Spirit and use discernment. But it's my personal belief that biological chemical weapons will be used in the North American continent. So,
well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, not to cut you off, but we saw like, a few weeks ago, there were different things that happened, right? Like attacks on American soil that some could say maybe not were tied to the conflict with Iran. But obviously there's a higher chance of something happening now the longer that this goes on, and the more escalated that the strikes get on their mainland, on their civilian infrastructure, the higher the chance goes for that to be returned.
Yeah. That actually almost guarantees it or seals it.
Right, for sure.
But like I was saying, we all need humbled, because like I was saying before, the pain and loss and suffering that the rest of the world has been experiencing, we have not experienced, and we've become complacent in a lot of our ways of life and ideas and things. And at this point, it's so severely embedded into us that we would probably have to suffer some real consequences to actually repent, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't want Trump's lack of diplomacy to cost the rest of the country in a horrific way, in the sense of needing to be humbled. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, I don't wish that there's any loss. But inevitably, that's probably the direction it will take, unless there's some kind of dramatic change. Not even just with the Iran thing, but with the division in this country itself. Because like you said before on that poll, it's pretty much split. And when you look at a lot of polls, they're almost pretty much split. So it's like a divide in half the country.
That's
so if none of that gets fixed, let alone the Iran thing, because Jesus said a house divided against itself shall not stand. So if we don't fix this division, the Iran thing is probably something to look at or whatever, but it's not the biggest concern.
No, it's just, it's the thing that's happening, right? The newest thing, it's nuanced, it's trending.
Yeah, it's shock and awe.
Right. Where it's going to go, only the Lord knows. I'm going to take some more of these comments real quick. Mario says, we love Trump. All right. Michael Cox says, I think Trump is too proud to tell America anything, but we are destroying. Not sure what he meant there. Bo says, I think that was us being allied with Israel. We followed their lead on the attack is what I've seen. Fair enough. It definitely was a joint venture, if you will. But yeah, I would say the U.S. is kind of leading the way still as the main aggressor.
Israel is like a mini America, almost in a way.
Like the little brother, yeah.
Yeah, because if you look at the Middle East, right? Okay, so you look at America, we have pride events and all these things, right? Okay, in the Middle East and Israel, they have pride events and all these things. So, not saying that we're identical or that it's whatever, but it's basically an extension thereof, sort of.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that at all. Kono says that they are eroding the U.S. credibility, not Trump. Trump has no credibility to start with. All right. Michael Cox says, I voted 3 times for Trump, yet he does not deliver for the common man. Paying back all his campaign contributors, military contractors, rule sad. So interested, for any others who have voted 3 times for President Trump, are you regretting that vote? Is this what you voted for? You are now in a war that doesn't seem to be an off-ramp, doesn't seem to be de-escalating. And certainly based on his comments today, doesn't seem that he is very happy with the direction the war is going, to say the least. Let me scroll on down here. Not Me says Iran will never back down now. I agree, based on what happened at the beginning. And I think Michael said that, as well as our brother Gino P, shout out to him, that when America first started off the conflict by killing the supreme leader, that set the tone to say, okay, we're no longer going to agree when this is going to end. It's going to end when we say so, because you've already struck us to the point of no return, in a sense. So I do agree that Iran is not going to back down to Trump's threat here. Hasn't backed down thus far to any of the threats in the past. I don't see them backing down to any threats in the future, because they've already been hit too hard. Like, they've already took losses.
Realistically, I believe that their leader being hit was intentional. And by that, there was rumors going around, whether it's true or not, that he was sick, and he was a very elderly man.
Yeah,
now in that belief, it's better to be a martyr, Now this man that was, the head or the leader of it, an elderly man, supposedly sick and everything, he was just sitting at home right there where they could get at him on day one for whatever reason. Like, they didn't have no kind of security protocols or,
We got to remember too, though, Michael, there was supposed to be talks of negotiation, right? That was the whole, and I don't know if that's true, obviously, but that was the narrative, was like, hey, we're in talks with Iran about some sort of nuclear deal concerning their nuclear development, or whatever the case may be. But that's basically what the narrative was that during these talks, during this negotiation, that's when the strike obviously happened. Nobody expected it. Obviously, they did it preemptively and without any type of foreshadowing. Well, I mean, there was a deadline, right? Trump said, hey, let's make a deal or else something bad will happen. So that was basically the narrative. It's like, hey, we're in talks, and if these talks don't come out to something productive, then something bad is going to happen. But before the deadline even hit, he took out their main leader. So all I'm saying is, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying as far as him being a very elderly man, maybe on his way out. What I'm saying is, if you're being told that we're in negotiations, then you're not going to move the same way, say, as their new leader now, right? People are still questioning where he's at, haven't seen him, this and that. He's moving a certain way now because the conflict is real. But back then, when it was just talks and it was just, threats, not even to this level, just saying, oh, something bad's going to happen, then you wouldn't move the same way as if you thought they were really going to strike you at your home.
Well, the leader that was and probably did succeed him was also hit.
You mean his son?
Yeah, his son. But the thing is that it's not like Iran didn't know this, because they have intelligence agencies and things as well. And they repeatedly told the United States that they wouldn't make a deal like that, and that, that's not going to happen. So they automatically knew from that get-go that if the United States didn't, change its demands or what have you, that there would be some kind of confrontation. But the morale of the people at the time was not the same as it is now after the leader was martyred. So to me, it seems like it just seems like it was how they used 9/11 as an excuse
Right.
to do something or whatever.
For sure.
So that's
for
what it
sure.
seems like to me. Like maybe what they're doing is more thought out than what we're actually believing.
Well, I think that regardless of that, you're right, regardless of whatever talks was going to happen concerning Iran's nuclear development, the enriched uranium, yada, yada, they wanted to go to war with them, right? Obviously, Israel did. And people wanted regime change in Iran. They were pushing for that very heavily, telling the people, rise up, overthrow, now's your chance. So I think you're right in regard that that was something that was in the plans inevitably. What I don't think was in the plans is where we're at now. I think they expected it to go a different way. They maybe expected it to end a lot quicker. And now they're seeing it's manifesting to a war of attrition being dragged out. And that's the serious problem.
I see it a little bit deeper to a degree, let alone what I was saying earlier. But I think that Iran is chomping at the bit for us to invade and have boots on the ground. I think that that's what they want to do is lure us into boots on the ground, because now all of a sudden, if we put troops on the ground, their buddies are not going to just be idle anymore. And they know that. So I think that it's like we said before, a bait and switch. The whole thing is kind of like let's say that they were enriching uranium higher than what they needed for civilian use. And by them doing that, if they did, they knew what the United States would ultimately try to do. And with the United States being so globally present for so long and not a lot of people liking that, at some point, there's a point to where people get fed up and they just, so I think that this is probably a long drawn out plan, and probably a plan that they may have drawn out decades ago. I'm not sure, but I'm not really sure about a lot of things except for the fact that Jesus Christ was crucified and resurrected.
Amen. I want to give a quick shout out to Chad. Chad, greetings and God bless you. Welcome to the podcast. What are your thoughts, sir? What are your opinions?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity to come up and speak. I guess a few things. As far as the enrichment and the plan here, that's a total reaction to Trump coming out of the JCPOA. Iran never enriched above 3.5% per that agreement, only until and but for Trump leaving the JCPOA, first going to 20% in 2020, I believe 60% at some point in time last year, which is interesting in and of itself, right? Because
his withdrawal from the deal, not to cut you off, but is that what you're referring to?
The enrichment to 60%. So just a bit of edification onto that, right? Like, because that was kind of the initial thought behind Midnight Hammer last year and the attacks, right? To blow up their nuclear capabilities, right? And their enrichment facilities. And what that actually did is decentralize all of the 400 pounds of 60% enriched uranium, which has created, a larger nuclear threat than what we had,
For sure.
before those bombs dropped. So it's important to understand that, you guys are talking about like, why were the leaders kind of all together? It's because they never expected us to be so stupid. Like, we knew that they understood that we're aware of their capabilities in the straits, and it's asymmetric. There's no way to defeat it. In addition to the fact that they had this, more highly enriched uranium, which they can put on a ballistic missile tonight and shoot into Tel Aviv. And I think that shows actually their restraint. They have not done that. And it proves the point of what Trump and Israel has said, that as soon as they get their hands on a nuclear weapon, they're going to use it. Well, they haven't. Their supreme leader was taken out. They still have not used that. So they seem like the only reasonable party at this point, if I'm going to be honest.
I mean, you make a great point, Chad. That's for sure. Just answering a quick question from the chat. They're wondering what JCPOA stands for. Is Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. It's known as the Iran nuclear deal. The U.S. withdrew from that deal in 2018 under President Trump, which led to instability in that deal. But yeah, I mean, Chad, he's making a lot of good points in regards to the restraint of Iran. People saying, hey, they're just waiting to bomb, until they get a weapon and they're going to use it. And they haven't used it yet. A lot of people are saying, hey, they've had these Hwasong missiles from North Korea for a while. Hey, this is old news. Okay, well, they still haven't shot one yet. So yeah, I agree with what Chad's saying. And unfortunately, it puts us in an even worse position, because when we look at what President Trump's language was as of today in the past, where it's just very conflicting statements, it's like, okay, if this was something that was pre-planned, like Michael was kind of saying, and I think Chad was kind of alluding to with the breakdown of Trump withdrawing from that deal, okay, where is this going to lead? Where is it going to come to a head? Now we see, but it's spiraled out of his control. This post here from President Trump tells me that he's completely lost control of the direction of this conflict. But maybe I'm wrong.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is any reasonable person who reads this thinks that this is someone who's in control of the situation, who is the CEO, that can direct, where the boat is being navigated to? I think the answer is clearly no.
For sure. Michael, what are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts is that he has underestimated the hornet's nest that he's opened. I don't know if anybody would remember this or not, but some years ago, and I believe it's what actually prompted Obama to join the JCPOA, if I'm not mistaken, but there was scientists, some of the top leading scientists in the world, that were in Iran for some time, doing work underground. And, nobody really necessarily knows what they've developed underground, because they have such a expansive underground network, because it's a fortress. It's just a solid mountain.
Looking at that, yeah.
Yeah.
Good for us.
You come in by sea, or you got to come in another direction, in which case it's still just a mountain. At some point there's, choke points and all these other things. So it's heavily fortified and defendable, because it's geography.
For sure.
But some years ago, and I believe it's when they were actually starting to test and deploy the Reaper drones, the Iranians took control of one of them drones, and they actually seized it. So
yeah, maybe you told me about that.
Yeah, so just because somewhere is not America or any other country that people might think has all these crazy secret capabilities, doesn't mean that the rest of the world don't do the same tactics. Like when Donald Trump was talking about making a deal with China and stuff and this and that, and the reporter said, well, don't they spy on us? And he said, well, yeah, sure, but we spy on them, and the French spy on us, and this country spies on that country. So they all kind of do it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things, not even the United States, Iran, China, and all these other countries. Each individual countries have things that they haven't told the other countries about, if that makes any sense.
For sure. I want to take some of these last comments here, get your guys' final thoughts here. It's been a good discussion for sure. When we first started talking about this, again, President Trump was saying to the now deceased Supreme Leader that they need to come to a deal or else, right? That was the running narrative. We now see that or else turned into preemptive strikes on Iran, Supreme Leader losing his life, and continued strikes on Iran to now to the point of this post here. President Trump saying Tuesday will be, let me pull it up here, Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the expletive straight, you crazy expletive, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Then he kind of signs it, President Donald J. Trump. So very boastful, very braggadocious. Like I said, when I read this, I was like, oh man, he's lost it for sure. But Michael Cox, he said, most of the world looks at America now as the great Satan, all morals gone. Whether you agree with him or not, a post like this obviously doesn't help to shift that kind of view when, President Trump is coming out on social media and threatening civilian infrastructure, which one of the people in the chat said is a war crime, right? Threatening civilian infrastructure, war crime. Again, if the shoe was on the other foot and someone threatened to bomb an American bridge or American energy infrastructure, they would say that was, a very serious crime against humanity, if you will. But Chad, what are your thoughts on President Trump, saying very publicly, saying in a very forthright way, very braggadocious way, hey, I'm going to strike these places. We know that that's civilian infrastructure, and I'm going to do it in a way that it's never been seen before, right? There will be nothing like it. He's telling them open the strait because obviously America can't force it open, can't control it. He's calling them crazy, and he's giving a final warning, you'll be living in hell. Just watch. What are your final thoughts on this?
I mean, it clearly constitutes a war crime to me, but I think that's besides the point. Trump doesn't care about that. I think at the end of the day, he doesn't realize the ability for the Iranian and Persian people to withstand trials and tribulations. In the war with Iraq that they had in the 80s, they were sending human waves. 400,000 Iranians died in that war, and those are the people who are in control of their government today. Additionally, we've only seen a fraction of their capabilities. There's tens of thousands of Shahad drones in the mountains that our friend was talking about, that are essentially the size of the Rockies. This is a country of 92 million people. It's going to take tens of thousands of troops, hundreds of thousands of troops to do a true regime change. And there's just no way that bombing a power plant is going to do anything but tee them off. And I promise you, the Israelis are going to be in for some very bad days if he follows through onto that.
Agreed. They're already getting striked in a way that they haven't been before, for sure. So
after being told that we blew up the vast majority of their ballistic missile launchers, unfortunately for everyone in the region, their missiles can be launched from underground. The Persian people have been living in those mountains for 6,000 years. They know how to live in the cave. Like, we're not going to solve that problem.
For sure. Well, Chad, very wise words from a wise man. I appreciate your cadence. I appreciate you coming on respectfully. Hope to hear from you again, sir. It's been good talking to you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I got a new sub tonight, man. Appreciate the time.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you as well. Take care and God bless you, Chad.
God bless you, brother.
Michael, you've been here since we kind of started covering this a while back, just saying, hey, we hope this doesn't happen. We hope this doesn't happen. In regards to preparing for the worst and hoping for the best, tomorrow's Monday. For those of you on the East Coast, you're already on Monday. So we're less than 24 hours away, or as Michael said, some maybe even happened today. We know Trump is preemptive, or he has been, right? His track record in regards to striking in this conflict. So I would say within the next 24 hours, we're going to see what comes of this post. What are your thoughts on that, Michael?
I would say maybe get some water purification methods or life straws.
Yeah.
And maybe put some food back, flashlights, batteries, what have you. Pray to the Father. Try to uphold him and try to lead other people to him and hold on. I mean, that's my best advice. There is no safe place. There is no safe method. There's nothing that will change what will inevitably happen if indeed he does do a strike.
Yeah, Hyrule said USA have crossed a line they can't come back from. Trump has opened Pandora's box. I honestly can't see the USA winning this one. Yeah, I hate to say it, but Trump's comment today really shadows that comment in an accurate way. It's like, oh man, like what have I done? I have to threaten them now, or they're not going to listen to me. And unfortunately, that's not going to work.
Do you remember when Jesus said, when you see the abomination and desolation that Daniel the prophet spoke about, let those in Judea flee into the wilderness? You remember when he was saying that? In Daniel, it clearly describes that before the son of perdition is revealed, that there will be a falling away and that Jerusalem would be trampled for 40 and 2 months underfoot. Now, like the fellow was saying, at some point, if things don't change, Israel and Jerusalem is in right in line into being trampled, because there is going to be a coalition of many that forsake the Holy Covenant. That's what it says in Daniel. And it is going to be for God to purge his vineyard, because he has explicitly talked about that in the Old Testament. So anybody that thinks that America will come out unscathed and perfectly fine, and that nobody will ever touch Israel or Jerusalem, ground yourself in faith now, because it explicitly says that after that happens, that there's going to be many people that come afterward mocking. Because you think about what would happen if something happened to Jerusalem, people would say, where's your God now? Don't Christians believe that, nothing will ever happen, this and that? So just try to go to the Word of God with no preconceived notions and let God tell you what he's trying to tell you, instead of you going with the pre-made narrative. And I pray for everyone.
Amen. Amen. Wonderful words from our brother Michael. I'm going to close the poll at this point. We had 424 votes. 54% said that President Trump, having threatened Iran with living in hell if they don't cooperate, is not the way to diplomacy. 54% said that. 40% said they agree with President Trump. 6% said that they're not sure. So It's one of those situations, as Michael said, there's division for sure. I think regardless, brothers and sisters, it places us all in a bad situation. This is a war that should have never been started. But Michael, I appreciate your time, sir. Most definitely appreciate your kind words, your respectfulness on the panel as always. We thank the Lord for you, and we hope to speak to you again.
Thank you, brother. God bless you. I pray for you, and I appreciate what you do. And, I love everyone here in the chat. I love you, TNT. I wish you well in Christ, God willing. I'll be on another episode.
Amen. I appreciate and love you too, Brother Michael. God bless you and your family.
Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir. And so, a good conversation here in the after hours. Again, just bringing you some updates on what's going on in this conflict. Safe to say, this is not turning out the way anybody perceived it to, whether you were a Trump supporter, a Trump hater, or you were just saying, hey, look, I don't care what's going on. Nobody thought that we would be at a point where the president is so unhinged, so bothered by the state of this conflict that he's cussing, he's mocking religions, he's calling names, and he's saying, you better do it. Better do it. At the end of the day, though, brothers and sisters, as we always say here, regardless of what happens, regardless of what takes place, we know that indeed it is all in the Lord's hands. And so we got to place our care and our trust upon the Lord, knowing that he cares for us as well. I thank the Lord for each and every one of you that are here. Your comments, your opinions, they're certainly respected and appreciated. Michael said something about getting prepared, and that's certainly my policy concerning myself, my family, my loved ones, is that regardless of times of war or not, we always got to prepare for the worst and hope for the best, knowing that our Lord and Savior will provide for us. With that, I thank you all, pray for you all, and certainly God bless you all. Amen.